If you've ever travelled on the Underground in London, you'll have heard this announcement. Mind the gap. And what it's doing is it's urging you to take care about the hazard that you face as you cross from where you're starting, the train, to your destination, the platform. So this afternoon I'm going to talk about leadership. And a lot's been written about leadership. In fact, there's volumes of books. I've bought a few, and I'll let you in on a little secret. I've never been able to finish one of them. 300-400 pages, get past 20 and you think, okay, life's too short, time to move on. So the question I put to myself that I thought, could I share with a group of people in 10 or 15 minutes a practical set of insights about what I've observed leaders do and make it relevant to you, whatever your context is. I mean, mine has been from the world of business, but could I make it relevant to whatever context you're in? So that's what I'm going to try and do today. I've spent the last 25 years working in a wide range of organisations. Sometimes I've been the leader. Several times I've had the great privilege to work for truly inspirational leaders, and over time I've spent more and more of my time working with leaders to help them and their organisations achieve their goals and overcome challenges. So before I share with you just a short number of insights, I want you to think about your own context. Maybe you're a leader of a team, an organisation, or maybe you want to think about your leader and the extent to which the behaviours that they demonstrate and the things that they do resonate with what I'm going to say. We're often told that one of the key roles of a leadership is to create that vision, that great motivation. And visions are great because, of course, they give you something to aim for. They can unify an organisation around a common goal. They can be energising and motivating. This image, in May 1961, John F. Kennedy said that by the end of the decade, America would put a man on the moon and bring them back safely. And this image is often used as an example of setting out a bold vision that then unlocks a huge amount of endeavour and achievement. 2 decades later, Bill Gates and Paul Allen articulated the vision for their company, Microsoft. They said that their aim was to put a computer on every desk and in every home. So in both cases, these were powerful visions and great acts of leadership, right? So what's the problem? What's the issue? And this is it here. When you create a vision, you also create a gap. And the bigger and bolder the vision, the bigger the gap. And it's a gap that your organisation and your people have to bridge. They have to go from where they are today, the level of performance and capability they have today, to where they need to get to achieve the targets in the vision. And so this throws up a number of challenges. And what I've found, and we'll share with you now, are 5 things that effective leaders do that distinguishes from the rest. And here's the first one. When that vision is articulated and that gap opens up, there's the opportunity for fear. And fear can take a number of forms. The fear of failure and the consequence that you'll lose your job. Who's going to pay the mortgage, the bills, and the school fees? Or, maybe you've been told that this achievement is such a great thing, the whole future of the company is resting on you. Well, you don't want to let all those stakeholders down. Or maybe you've been successful at every other thing you've done in your career, and now for the first time you fear failure. So fear is part of this gap. And what I've observed effective leaders do is they listen to their teams, they listen to their organisation, and they engage in the fear, because the fear tells them about what they need to do to help the teams be successful. I had a very powerful experience of this very early in my career. I was given the task of starting up a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant. It was going to produce cardiovascular drugs, cancer drugs. It was very important. It was vital to the company. It was the most advanced, most sophisticated plant that had been built at that time. And so I was scared. And the worst thing was, actually, it was so complicated, it didn't work. So the good news is, I had a great boss. And that boss spent time with me asking about my concerns, and then went out into the organisation, fought against the hierarchy, got the resources and the support that I needed to address my fear. And as a result of that support, my team was able to achieve things that I had no comprehension would be achievable. It was an astounding success. And so naive as I was early in my career, I thought, well, this is what it's all about. This is great, right? Wrong. Because actually, in many organisations, our leaders don't behave like that. And then the fear can become disruptive. It becomes dangerous, actually. Sometimes leaders project, and I think they don't always expect to do this, but an expectation that you're reporting that things are on track. You know, who's ever worked in an organisation of the culture of the green traffic light? You know, everything's green, everything's okay. So the first thing I believe that great leaders do is they engage with the fear and they understand what's going on. The second thing relates to a phrase you've probably heard several times, you know, eating the elephant one bite at a time. Now, it's not something I've tried personally, nor do I intend to do, but the image is actually helpful. So the idea here is if you have a big challenge, a big undertaking, what the leader does is they help their team break it down into chunks, and then you create a plan from how you're going to get to the beginning and get to the end. It's pretty simple. It's not complicated. And then once that plan's set, what the leader does is they talk to the people working at the front line in the organisation and make sure that what they're doing relates to the plan. And if not, they go back to the leadership team and they fix that. But there's something else that leaders do as well. And I've got to thank my 10-year-old daughter, actually, for this image. And she selected it because I was explaining the concept of what I wanted to get across, and she said, yeah, this is what you need, Daddy. So basically, the journey, the plan is how to get across the river. And what you can see are some stepping stones across the river. They're like milestones in the plan. And what good leaders do is they make sure that the gap between these milestones is not too big. Because guess what? If the gap's too big, you're going to lose balance and fall in and get wet. And that's just what it's like in organisations. And so the next thing that I realise that effective leaders do is they make sure there's a near-term milestone. Sometimes it's only a month away. It's very rarely more than 90 days away. And they make sure the organisation's focused on that. Because if you can cross this river one stone at a time, if the plan is set, you'll get to the other side. So that was the next thing that I've observed effective leaders do. And thank you, Isabella. The third thing they do is they build capabilities that help the team close the gap. Now, that's a complex bit of language. So what do we actually mean there? What's a capability? Well, it might be some money. It might be additional members for the team, or specialist skills. It might be an IT system. It might even just be a bit of their time coaching. And so let's look at the sporting analogy. So what do we got here? We've got a professional tennis coach working with a player who needs to improve his serve. He's got to get more shots in on the first serve if he's going to beat players further up in the rankings. And so what happens here? Well, they go to the practice court and they work on it, and they work on it, and they work on it. And they make adjustments, and they practice, and eventually the player's capability develops, and they get the serves in and they win the game. And that's what I've observed leaders do, effective leaders do. They identify where the teams need help, and they coach, and they support. And it's actually a painful process. If you've seen elite sport coaching, this is not a comfortable process. And indeed, in business or in other contexts, it can feel like micromanagement. It can feel painful because you have to change sometimes what you're doing. It can feel like growing pains. But it's actually a good thing, and it can really help teams succeed. So that was the next thing that I've observed that effective leaders do. For my fourth point, I want to talk about opportunity and risk. Now, please raise your hand if you work in an organisation or worked in an organisation that does risk management. Yeah, okay. Now, if any of you who raised your hand think that process does any good in your organisation, please come and see me during the break because I'd love to talk to you about it. But managing risks is good, surely it's not a bad thing. So what's the problem? Well, I'll tell you why. And I'm going to have to explain the process a little bit. So risk management is about you identify things that can go wrong, right? And you figure out their impact, and then you think, well, what can you do about it? And it's called mitigation. And so here's the problem. Most of the mitigating things that we do are not completely effective. And the other thing that can happen is risks can pop out of nowhere and whack you before you've had a chance to figure out what to do with them. And so all of this means that all of this effort means that we come up short and we have another gap. Now, what the effective leader recognizes is that risk is just one side of a coin. Because for everything that can go badly, there are often many things that can go better than planned. And so the effective leader creates an environment in their organization so that people will innovate. They'll come up with new ideas and better ways of working and bring forward opportunities that can add up to more than the risks can take away. And so that's another behavior I've seen in great leaders and effective leaders. They manage opportunity and risk as two sides of a coin. For many years, I've believed that companies should tear up their risk management processes and sort of throw them in the bin. And if you think that's a bit rash, then I'd ask you to go through the annual reports of some of the world's greatest companies over several years, as if you're really going to do that. But take it from me, you will find that more often than not, over time, companies come up short in terms of what they deliver to their shareholders. But these reports are full of pages and pages of articulating risks and all the governance and processes. So I believe companies should have opportunity and risk management processes, and that would be a much healthier state. And in fact, some of the better leaders I know, that is how they run their operations. So for the fifth and final point, I'm going to put up an image, and I want you to just think about what you see there. So these are silos. They're big. They've got strong walls. They're designed to keep stuff in and to stop the weather coming from the outside and going in so that nothing can move in or out. Now, they are a brilliant invention if you're storing up grain for the winter. Absolutely marvelous. But if you're running a large organization, these things are deadly. The image that people use to tell me more often than not about what it feels to work in their organizations is this. We work in a silo. And what this image is communicating is that the information's flowing from the boss, to the middle management, down to the team, up and down, and that's the way information's flowing and decisions are taken. But actually, very little value is created this way. Value is created this way. And I have to thank James Womack, the author of a number of great books on lean management for this concept. The world works horizontally. We take inputs, we work them in one team, we pass them on to the next team, and so on, and eventually we deliver to our customers. And so the problem is, this way of working gets in the way of how value is created. And so the thing that I've observed, the last thing I've observed that effective leaders do, is they become silo busters. They break down silos, they break down barriers in the organization and help people talk to each other and work together. So look, that's it. 5 simple things that you can take out into your organization and your workplace on Monday. If I had the time or the appetite, I'd write a book about it, but there's really no point because it's so simple and there's not much more to be said. So if these things resonate with you, I encourage you to apply them, demand them of your boss, and if you do, I promise you, the results will be astounding. Mind the gap. Thank you.